stronger. This is how legends are made. Above it all, untouchable, a new animal. This is how legends are made.
The facts, dates, and events presented in this video are from the members' best recollection and may not be fully accurate. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Always consult with your local union about your rights and duties at your workplace. The opinions shared on this video are our own and do not necessarily represent my employer's positions, strategies, or opinions. All views shared are protected under the National Labor Relations Act.
Do you know what a PAC is? Yeah, a PAC. PAC. I bet your union has one. Stands for Political Action Committee. And what a PAC does is it gives you and your union a voice in government. This little dinosaur can take you to my union's PAC. Here's the great thing about PACs. If you can get a law passed for something that you want in your contract, you don't have to negotiate for it anymore. It's a law. It's not on the table anymore for your contract, so you get to bargain from a better position. My unions help to make sure there are no knives on planes. They've helped pass the FAA Reauthorization Act, which gave us 10 hours minimum rest, and now they're working on a Protection Against Abusive Passengers Act. These things are great, and if your union has one, you should contribute to it. At least $2 every person.
Hey, brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode of the Bi-Weekly Grievance. I'm your host, Dan Arlen. This week we have a special guest. Her name is Alana. She is known as your union sister on TikTok. I recently came across her TikTok page, and she caught my attention with a TikTok referring to PACs. As we know, politicians use lobbyists to push their agendas, and a lot of those causes are anti to our union activities. So the unions have fought back by having these PAC committees that get behind candidates that are union or worker friendly. And I'm just learning into it, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Alana. Could you introduce yourself for us and give a little background of what you do and your involvement with the unions?
Sure. Hi, my name is Alana, your union sister on TikTok, and I'm also a base council representative in Phoenix for the Association of Professional Flight Attendants, also known as APFA. And in doing that, I'm also a government affairs representative for our union and also a contract action team representative as we're in contract negotiations right now. So the video that you saw, I was telling people about PACs because I feel like a lot of people don't know about them. There are all different types of PACs. They're not specific to unions. Some, political parties use them as ways to pump money into their candidates. But unions are very successful at using them to help lobby for legislation that, works in our favor. One of the key things to remember about getting legislation passed is that if it's something that you try to negotiate in your contracts, if you can get it into law, you don't have to fight for it anymore. You don't have to trade things or concede in different areas to keep those things. It's a law, so you start at a much better bargaining position. So that's what our unions try to do with our PAC money.
Does your PAC for your union have a name, or how do you refer to it?
We just call it the APFA PAC.
So I discovered that we call our PAC D.R.I.V.E. The acronym stands for Democrat, Republican, Independent, Voter Education. And it's our PAC. As soon as I found out about it, I signed up, and I am now making a weekly contribution to that. I think it's an important thing because, as you know, we're on an unlevel playing field. I read somewhere that a lot of companies spend 15 to 1 on political support of candidates to go against union activity or, workers' rights in general. So this is a pretty important thing that we need to get our members behind and get people informed about.
I'm so glad that this content reached you and that it's reaching people to help them understand that, because a lot of people don't know exactly what their union can and can't do to support them. And our unions can't use union dues to help legislate or to give to political campaigns. So it's important that we figure out a way to collectively get our voices heard in Washington, and they're not going to hear us without dollars, unfortunately.
Right. And that's important to know that these things only exist through voluntary contributions from members, and that it does not come out of our union dues funds, which is important. If you're able to, go ahead.
And I was going to say it's also not necessarily partisan. Our PAC in particular will donate to any candidate that's going to support us. If they're willing to sign on legislation that we're proposing, we want to keep them where they're at. And we've proposed lots of different things that have passed through like many different unions support. We were able to help with the paycheck protection. There's been no knives on planes initiatives, different security initiatives. And every union has their own fight, that things that they need to see made into law. So I'm so glad that my content is reaching other union members too, because the more that we can all fight for workers' rights, the more that we're all getting in that.
To your point, as I pointed out, the name of ours is D.R.I.V.E, Democrat, Republican, Independent Voter Education. So that in itself shows that it's also not a party specific thing. It is open to any political person that's willing to get behind it. And one thing that is new under our new leadership with Sean O'Brien is he came in and he kind of wiped clean our political aspect of the union and started over. Under the Hoff administration over the last 20 years, we got to the point where we were supporting candidates that promised one thing and then never really fell through with helping our unions. And the one thing I can say is Sean has said to the politicians, listen, he had a rally in Boston with Bernie Sanders, who has always been a very big advocate for unions and workers' rights. And he straight up said, listen, we are no longer going to support candidates that don't fulfill their promises. If you're going to promise us one thing, we will cut off our ties with you. We will not support candidates that promise one thing and don't follow through with it. So we're rebuilding our political campaign at the Teamsters. Off the top of your head, can you name a couple of things that your PAC or a PAC that you're aware of has accomplished? I know you said knives on planes, but just a couple of general ideas of what these types of committees fight for. And it may not even be a contract issue, like the knives on planes. I mean, technically that's more of a safety issue than a contract issue. But if you could just name a few things and talk about a few of those, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, the most recent and probably the biggest that's impacted my life is the FAA Reauthorization Act, which allowed for us to finally get 10 hours rest between like the passengers deplaning to our report the next day. It used to be 8 hours. And so once you calculate in, getting everybody off the plane, getting to your van, getting to the hotel, getting your key and getting up to your room and checking to make sure that everything's safe in your room, you're really down to like maybe 5 hours sleep, because then the next day you have to get up and take the van and go to the airport.
Well, I encourage everybody to look into that with their unions. And even if it's just $5 a week or something, make a contribution to that. It's important as union members to support that kind of cause. A little off topic, what's happening in the airline industry right now?
The American Airlines flight attendants are in current contract negotiations and have filed for mediation. Our pilots at American Airlines took a strike vote, and 96% participated in that strike vote,
Wow.
and 99% authorized a strike. So that really put a fire under American Airlines, and they've come to an agreement that their members will vote on as to whether or not that TA will pass.
That's a
And
huge
then-
bargaining chip when you get that kind of support and participation.
Especially when it's not just symbolic, when we're all, and you probably are too, under the Railway Labor Act. Is that right?
That is not correct.
Okay.
Our competitor FedEx is under the Railroad Act. We fall under the NLRA, the National Labor Relations Act.
Okay.
Which is a huge benefit to us because we are not held to the standard of Congress can't stop us from striking.
Yes.
We have the ability to go out on strike. Unlike what happened to the railroad people, they cannot impose a contract on us.
Okay. Yeah. So we're a part of the Railway Labor Act. And so there's lots of different steps that we have to take before we're released to self-help or strikes. And so, when the pilots got to a certain level, that's when they authorized their strike vote. So it's not just symbolic, it means something. And so with us, same thing, we're progressing through our levels. I think our members are pretty fed up and ready for that strike vote. There's also the Southwest flight attendants that are being treated horribly by their company as well. The Southwest pilots just did their strike vote. So there's a lot of turmoil in the industry, and, the companies, they have an opportunity to reach out to their workers, make them feel like they're being supported, and they're failing at so many different ways of doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I will link my friend Yvette Avery on this. I hope you check out her page. She uses the hashtag Stand with Yvette. She was working part-time for UPS as well as Delta Airline. And they tried to force her to make a decision of picking one company to the other because she moved up from the ramp up into the gate agent, and they were upset that she was wearing a Teamster pin. So she stood her ground, and she's a wonderful Teamster. And I hope you check her out and reach out to her. She's a great person.
Yeah, you were telling me that she's working with Delta, and they honestly need all the help they can get to negotiate a union on property. Those flight attendants, they're not unionized, so they're just at the mercy of the company. Thankfully, as such a strong airline that's not unionized, the company keeps trying to throw them bones to keep them from passing authorization of representation, but it only lasts as long as they keep the process going. Delta just announced that they're going to be releasing the names, first and last names of flight attendants that are operating a flight to the passengers the day before. And so many thousands of us have had issues of passengers stalking us after the flight. And it's just outrageous that in this day and age, there have been flight attendants that have been murdered by passengers on their layovers. So to have Delta doing this while they're trying to organize, it's just outrageous.
That's
so
crazy.
I hope that she's able to do a lot for them.
Yeah, like I said in our chat off the show, she was in Atlanta with Sarah Nelson this week, taking action with them, and I'll post some of that stuff in this video as well. The Teamsters are in a fight for their lives right now with UPS, and of course the PR battle has already started on that front. Carol Toomey was on CNBC, and I'll be airing some of that content where she basically makes us out to be greedy people. She points out that UPS drivers make $93,000 a year on the average, that we get close to $50,000 in benefits, and we pay absolutely nothing for healthcare. But if you go through all of our contract negotiation paperwork and demands, there isn't a single thing in there about pay raises for full-time drivers. Right. I mean, yes, we're union and the company has made record profits, so we are going to ask for a pay raise. But our strike issues revolve around the 2/3 of UPS employees that she didn't refer to, and that's our part-time employees. Overwhelming majority of our employees are part-timers, and they make about $15 an hour depending on where they are. Now, that may sound like a decent wage, but in those same areas, you can go to work for McDonald's or a gas station for that same $15 an hour. And the type of work that our part-timers do is very physically grueling and susceptible to injury. And the working conditions are so poor. A lot of these warehouses, aren't all of the warehouses, as far as I'm aware of, don't have air conditioning. So all day long, the building is cooking, and then they come in at night to load the trucks, and it's literally a sweat box. You're wet from the time you start your job till you go home.
And these corporations, they're trying to keep it not competitive in their areas for part-time workers, because that's also a way to union bust. If you can't keep the workers long enough, and you just keep on cycling through part-time workers, people aren't going to get engaged in their union, and they're not going to participate. They're going to feel like their union's not doing stuff for them. And so what you guys are fighting for is so important for your union's future.
Absolutely. And some of the other issues, like, I don't know if you heard, we've had a few deaths at UPS in the back of UPS trucks due to heat. A gentleman out in California, Chavez, passed out and died in the back of his package car at 24 years of age, the day after his 24th birthday. I have temperature readings in the back of UPS trucks kissing 160 degrees. And it takes less than 10 minutes to start affecting your organs in those type of temperatures. So if you're back there looking for a package and you lose track of time, you very easily could cause yourself even just heat injuries, never mind death. And it's just in a company that makes such record profits, it's time to address that issue.
And what's sick about this is if there was an animal on that vehicle, then UPS would bend over backwards to make sure that the vehicle's temperature was good enough to not have a puppy die, but their workers who have families that they're trying to feed, nothing for them. They can die in the back of the truck, and UPS will just rehire, keep hiring.
Yeah. They've never said this. I'm not going to say this, but their perception of what they're doing is like, well, 1 or 2 deaths is an acceptable thing, right? I mean, they never said that, but it feels that way when we have those types of incidents and they're not being addressed, right? Even in the Northeast, they're going to fight hard about not putting air conditioning in the trucks because, on the average, we don't deal with a ton of high temperature, but we definitely have heat waves where we get 3, 4, 5 days of extreme temperatures with extreme humidity, and we can still go through the same thing. So it doesn't matter where the truck is located. They all need to be addressed.
Yeah, actually, Unite here is having that same struggle as well for their LSG Sky Chef caterers that cater our airplanes. They also don't have refrigeration in the trucks. They have it for the food that's being delivered to the planes. But the people on board, and in Phoenix, Arizona, the air temperature can get to 120. The tarmac temperature soars well past that. And, the people on those trucks aren't getting air conditioning. And in 2022, 2023, these choices to not have air conditioning on the trucks are choices because it's a pretty standard thing. So they're also struggling with that fight.
I appreciate your time. This has been wonderful. I hope to stay in contact with you, and I hope that we can bring more awareness to different issues. I'll be watching you on TikTok, and I appreciate your time. Honestly, I do. And
thank you, Dan.
Hey, brothers and sisters, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Lana was a great guest. It's truly important to understand how well PACs work for unions. First of all, like I said in the video, the companies in general, not just UPS, tend to spend about 15 to 1 on PACs and influencing politicians over what the unions typically do. And again, it's worth noting that donations to campaigns can only be made from donations made to the PAC by the members. It does not come out of union funds or dues. So that's important to understand. And again, like Lana pointed out, when you can get something into law, you don't have to negotiate it. So, for example, We just got a big win in the contract for AC. But imagine this. Imagine if we didn't need that leverage and we were able to get politicians to propose and pass a law that stated that commercial vehicles in general, delivery vehicles, must be equipped with heat and air conditioning. Well, if it was a law because it's safety related and it, became a law, then we would no longer have to negotiate that and we'd have more negotiating power for other things. So it's things like that. There's a lot of other examples down the road. We can maybe dig into some more that maybe we could push or ask our PAC to look into. But that's a good example of something that we wouldn't have had to negotiate if we had been able to get a law. Just want to remind everybody, please download the UPS Teamsters app. Check it daily. Don't forget to refresh it. Good information coming in. That's where you're going to get the meat of the information. Again, I want to push Red Shirt Fridays. It's a minimal action that doesn't take a lot of effort other than wearing a red shirt to work Thursday night if you're working overnight into Friday or Friday into Saturday, whichever. It's a clear statement to the company that the inside employees stand in solidarity with the part-timers and getting them the wages they deserve that they've been neglected for years. So even if you're a full-time inside person, you should be wearing a red shirt on Friday. I ask that of you. And it's a simple, great statement to make. Last night, June 21st, the National Contract Update conference call with Fred and Sean. They went over the fact that 55 tentative agreements have been reached in the non-economic portion of the contract. And he went over those tentative agreements. Over this weekend, I'm going to try to put together a show recapping that for you guys. Also, Sean announced that they turned over their economic proposals to the company. I can only imagine what's in it. Those details will come later because they haven't actually started negotiating that. They've just turned over their proposals. He's looking for significant pay raises for full-timers, part-timers, catch-up raises for the part-timers, all employees across the board, significant raises. So this weekend, Saturday, there's a national contract campaign webinar, things that we can do for actions for the last month or so of this negotiations, to include practice, picket, and rallies. Also, Sunday, June 25th is the last contract action team training, and that's here in New England out at Local 25 in Boston. It is from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. this coming Sunday, and you can register for that through the UPS Teamsters app. All right, brothers and sisters, that concludes this episode of the Biweekly Grievance. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you stopping by. Solidarity forever, brothers and sisters.
Hundreds of thousands of UPS workers are preparing to walk off the job after members of the Teamsters Union voted overwhelmingly yesterday to approve a strike if contract negotiations are not met. If a strike does happen, it would be the largest against a single employer in U.S. history, and it is, of course, crucial to the nation's economy. UPS delivered more than 18 million domestic packages per day in the first 3 months of the year, and an estimated 6% of the United States' entire gross domestic product moves aboard UPS trucks. Now, the Teamsters' current 5-year contract expires at the end of next month on July 31st, meaning that a strike could start the next day on August 1st. Joining me now is Richard Hooker of the Teamsters Local 623 in Philadelphia. His union represents UPS workers in Philadelphia as well as Delaware County. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today. I know these contract negotiations are still very, very much underway. We're several weeks out, but can you walk us through the key sticking points that the Teamsters are seeking?
Well, the key points are get rid of two-tier wage system. We have this Article 224 drivers that do the same thing as our regular package car drivers, but they get paid significantly less and have less protections. So that needs to go away. Of course, the harassment, the retaliation, and the brutal antics of UPS, that also needs to go away. Better working conditions, more sick time, because as you guys know, that COVID is still here, and our members delivered through the pandemic. And so we want to make sure that our members can deliver safely, as well as being able to be compensated for if they need to be at home taking care of their families.
You mentioned brutal antics. Can you describe that a bit more?
So UPS, for everybody that's in the UPS world, we know that UPS is a very hostile company. They like to control the work, and it is their company, but they don't see us as equals. So they govern as such. They are very retaliatory. They do not like when you stand up for yourself. We have in our contract, every member has a grievance procedure. Whenever the company violates the contract, we have an apparatus that allows us to file that grievance for the company to do the right thing. They don't like that. They don't like union activists. They don't like when you stand up for yourself, for your rights. So they become retaliatory. And they are very hostile, and they create a hostile working environment for our members. And that is a big, big part in our contract. Harassment language needs to be beefed up because this company is a hostile company.
I want to read a bit of what UPS said in a statement. They wrote, "The results of this vote that was yesterday, do not mean that a strike is imminent and do not impact our current business operations in any way. We continue to make progress on key issues and remain confident that we will reach an agreement that provides wins for our employees, the Teamsters, our company, and our customers." Do you agree with that? Is progress being made?
Well, UPS has to say the politically correct thing. If they felt that way, then they wouldn't have dragged their feet throughout this whole negotiating process. We still have two outstanding supplements, one in Northern California and one in Kentucky. If they felt that way, they would have been done by now. In some areas, when this negotiation first started, they weren't even coming to the table. Now, we just made this company the most profitable it ever been, and they're not even coming to the table in some areas. That doesn't show me that they want an agreement. They still want to be hostile. They still want to be contentious. And again, if that's the way they want to do it, then August 1st, we'll be on the side of the road.
What does that mean for customers? Obviously, millions of Americans a day are hugely reliant on UPS. So what would a strike mean for them?
Well, a strike would mean that you're not going to get your product. You're not going to get your necessities. You're not going to get your wants. And it's based on what UPS does, because the Teamsters, we provide that service that they can provide to their customers. Without us, there is no you getting your baby formula. Without us, there is no COVID vaccination being delivered. Without us, you're not going to get what you need to have your business provide for where your customers may need. And so this could mean a whole lot for the customers. So if I were those business owners and customers, I would put a lot of pressure on UPS to get this done, because it's not the Teamsters that's causing this, it's the company.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Lots of essentials being delivered every single day all across the country. So are you optimistic then that a deal can be struck before August 1st?
I'm optimistic to a point, but I've seen some things over this last 5 years of this contract. I've seen, again, the brutality of UPS. I've seen their contentious. I've seen their hostility toward our workers. And I think the reason why you saw such a high turnout in this vote authorization is because our members have seen it. They've experienced it. The pandemic. I mean, we've had members who have gotten injured on the job, and UPS said, whatever, continue to work. We've seen pregnant women fired. We've seen single parents having to make a decision on spending time with their kids or coming to work on a day that they're not scheduled to work because UPS is demanding them to come in. Our members have not forgotten that. We were called heroes and essential. Now they're treating our members as if they're disposable, and that's just not fair.
Yeah, some very, very important negotiations with 7 weeks to go. Richard Hooker, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.